Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. At least 2 people have just been seriously injured and 2 more killed in a suspected terror attack at the Asaf junction near Ramallah Thursday morning, just 2 kilometers down the road from the scene of the drive-by shooting on Sunday evening at a bus stop near OFRA. According to Magen David Adom paramedics, the remaining 2 live victims are in critical condition and are being rushed to the hospital. And witnesses say a man in a car pulled up from Route 60, opened fire, and then fled. The shooter was intercepted shortly after, however, and neutralized. IDF officials are investigating the circumstances and motives behind the attack, but early indications point to nationalistic terror. And this just after the IDF found and killed overnight both the shooters from OFRA this week and from Barkan in October. Speaking of the terror attack in OFRA, the baby who was delivered prematurely after his mother was seriously wounded in the terror attack in OFRA has died. The baby, who was given the name Amiyad Israel, was laid to rest in the Mount of Olives Cemetery in Jerusalem last night, and earlier in the day, doctors at the Shaare Tzedek Medical Center in Jerusalem pronounced his death after he had spent his entire short life in the ICU. The baby's parents, Shira and Amichai Ishiran, were able to visit the baby for the first time Wednesday morning in the hospital, though they're still recovering from the gunshot wounds they sustained themselves and were unable to attend the funeral. The baby's grandfather, however, Rafael Ishiran, eulogized the baby, saying that in his short life he had managed to unite the nation of Israel. And condolences and well wishes poured into the family from all over. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that our hearts are with Shira and Amichai. And then President Reuven Rivlin recited a famous poem about a baby bird that falls from his nest and can't be rescued. And it wasn't just Israel united by the death either. United States Special Envoy Jason Greenblatt tweeted that the baby's death was absolutely heartbreaking, while the European Union ambassador to Israel said he was deeply saddened to hear the baby's passing in the terror attack. Now, immediately following the funeral, the IDF and Shin Bet launched an operation early Thursday morning to track down and kill the 2 terrorists in Nablus, Saleh Omar Barghouti, who is responsible for the OFRA shooting, as well as Ashraf Walid Suleiman Naalawa, who murdered 2 people in the Barkan Industrial Park in October. This means that Naalawa had been on the run for nearly 2 months. On Thursday morning, after the deaths were announced, Hamas then claimed responsibility for the OFRA shooting and hailed Barghouti as a heroic martyr. Before Barghouti was killed, though, Hamas praised the attack but refrained from claiming it as their own. In other terror-related news, 2 Israeli border police officers stationed in the old city of Jerusalem were wounded after a terrorist attacked and stabbed them early this morning. The Palestinian attacker approached the officers on Chagai Street and began to slash at his victims, but was shot dead at the scene by other officers nearby. One of the wounded officers was a 20-year-old female who was moderately wounded, and the second was a 21-year-old man, who was also thankfully only lightly hurt. After the attack, police spokesperson Mickey Rosenfeld wrote on Twitter that units respond, terrorist shot, heightened security in area. And according to Magen David Adom paramedics, the 2 wounded officers have since been taken to hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, the United States Congress has now targeted the use of human shields by Hamas and Hezbollah against Israel. The House of Representatives Tuesday passed the Sanctions of the Use of Civilians as Defenseless Shields Act with largely bipartisan support, and now it only needs to be signed by President Trump to go into effect. Once signed, the United States will then be obliged to impose sanctions on terrorists, terrorist groups, and/or foreign states who deliberately cause casualties through the use of civilian human shields. The law, which is intended largely to target Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran, was pushed by AIPAC and CUFI, 2 American pro-Israel advocacy organizations. And in a statement, AIPAC also reiterated that, quote, the importance of this legislation is underscored by the recent discovery of Hezbollah terror tunnels into Israel that originated under the cover of civilian houses in Lebanon. And just weeks ago, using the cover of civilian populations in Gaza, as Hamas fired more than 500 rockets at communities across southern Israel, end quote. Likewise, following the reported death of a 4-year-old Gazan boy at last weekend's weekly Hamas-organized protests on the border, while Hamas and Palestinian officials blame Israel for shelling too closely, Israel blames Hamas for bringing children to a volatile and violent assault on the Israeli border. Finally, a group of Israeli IDF reservists are also now set to attack Hamas's and the PA's use of human shields by filing an official complaint with the International Criminal Court at The Hague. The My Truth group, which brought forward the complaints, said that, quote, when the March of Return protests began in April, our soldiers were going in front of Hamas terrorists every Friday and we saw them use women and children to attack our soldiers, end quote. My Truth founder Avichai Shorshan intends to share more testimony with the United States Congress in February as well. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.